Yeah.
seemed that busy, but they didn't have time. They decided not. So I think Kim's got it every time.
And I'll be looking for the buggy tied up outside.
No, that was a bad joke on my part. No, don't tell yourself.
You gotta start showing up at Board of Health, man.
I was going to tell you, I promise I'll be there next.
Yeah, you promised me last time though.
No, but now it's on my calendar.
Okay. And it's in Stanton. If you don't show up, Stanton, I'm coming to get you.
Yeah, you know, about a week after that, I remembered.
Well, that was a week too late.
Now it's on my calendar.
Good.
Won't be forgotten.
Good.
Yeah.
What happens is they wake up on Wednesday morning, gotta get to work.
Yeah.
It wasn't
No, wow.
like a cow,
Well, you can
cow
always-
going to the stanchion, you know.
Yeah, why this will work as well.
You can always carpool with me, especially
Sure,
the
Ron.
one in Ithaca. We can
Thanks.
meet here,
It's gonna
meet in Stanton and go there.
Yeah. No, I don't. They're posted through this Friday, I believe. No, there's not a course. We really do IT here. It's gonna suck.
And then another thing on that, I saw
For those in
They're offering 6. I'm getting anybody.
we call them cover.
Getting everybody's discipline.
That one I don't think we ever taught.
Just the party.
The hard task of doing the backgrounds and getting the form wrong.
Yeah, they sit up here.
Yep.
Joanne and Chris and
You gotta
Tim.
get me
Yeah.
on that too.
Everybody else is out there.
To perfection. To perfection. Doing pretty good. How about yours?
Oh, that's gotta go to 30.
And then we got it up.
As far as I know.
You know, Mike said something about that too.
They haven't got me too. Just get my stuff together here.
Yeah, but we used to be paid better than that. We're actually pretty low. I think they went. Are they up there?
Well,
I'm restarting.
so we get paid deputy wage.
Authorizing
I'm there.
money.
I'm one
Expand.
or 2 years. I'm making 45.
Pat, you want?
Cable for a laptop? Well,
As a beginning, basically being deputy.
here, just
Came
restart it.
up with it out of our.
This is the cable to
I know I'm worth more, but you know what I'm saying.
What is
Rob's making over 30.
back right here.
is that?
And he's been there for how many years? When did he retire? You know?
This one, no.
Montcalm County Solid Waste.
Thank you.
Man,
Well, it's on, it's not hooked to anything at this
what's
point.
that plaque right there?
Who's gonna do it?
2,000?
Yes.
District 11. Yeah, that's a little while ago.
Back when we had a couple.
Is that your dad's?
Did they want to come?
Yeah, I know, but you gotta clean that thing up. Schmutz.
Spit on her or something.
Uh-oh.
Right there.
He's gotta use that on you.
Kevin Waters.
It's time to get out of hand.
Just gonna make me mad.
It's got a smiley face on it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If the flies get better.
That 6 o'clock meeting last.
Boy,
I'm just.
I had the most hillbilly thing I've probably ever done in my life happen to me before I come here. I've had a woodchuck running around in my front yard for months. And I always see him when I'm getting ready to leave the house. He's in my front yard, just like eating my flowers and stuff coming up. That son of a bitch was kind of over. I've never wanted to let Kirby out to kill it because in my head, first thing that's going to happen, that woodchuck's going to run towards that road and Kirby's not going to be able to stop. So I've been waiting to where it's just positioned just right so I could let her out. I'm still like today.
I'm on that.
It was over in front of my garage a little bit more, and I'm thinking she could probably get the jump on it before he really knows what's going on. But I thought, walk downstairs, grab one of my 12 gauges. I'm probably 20 yards from 91. I stick that thing out my garage door window or my garage door. I'm looking at the cars going by behind it. Finally, I see an opening. Boom! The cars that were still going by were just like beep beep. Oops. Didn't even really think about it, but I bet you that was probably a little jarring to hear a 12 gauge go off as you're driving by.
I say you live it. A friend of mine had one once. He had an old farmhouse, an old style barn there in the yard.
How long did you guys stay the
How
other
did
day?
he get it thing lit on fire?
Lit it on fire?
Yeah, but I'm trying to think how he did that.
Flaming arrow?
I think he just,
Well,
I think possum. Somehow he poured gas
Hot
on it,
dog?
and lit
Oh,
it on
are you
fire
talking
out in
about?
his yard.
Jesus.
And the thing
Legion
took
afterwards.
off running for the
get home
barn.
about 10.
Barn doors are open out
Yeah.
of the bar, so he's chasing it down, trying to catch it before it goes in the barn on
Yeah.
fire.
That is the grossest way I've ever heard of killing something.
Inhumane, for sure. It'd have served him right if it would have burned his
Yeah,
barn down.
exactly.
Well, Kirby went chasing after one last week, and normally she makes real short work of them.
In the back.
She went she went busting after it. It was in the field behind the house. This thing just stood its ground,
Stood there for him.
and I was like, "Oh no!" She goes and chomps down on it. She comes up, and it's just like a cartoon. Her tongue comes right out of her mouth, and that woodchuck's just attached right to
Oh
it.
no.
Oh, she's got a big old cut in her tongue. She was not happy after that.
Those things are pretty vicious,
Oof.
for sure. Everybody ready?
Mhm.
I just have a question, but
Call the meeting to order. It's Montcalm County Board of Commissioners, regular meeting for Monday, April 10th. We'll begin with a pledge and invite you to remain standing for the prayer, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vice Chairman Peterson.
Okay, today we have Pastor Dennis Ross from Nevins Lake Church here in Stanton to lead us in prayer, please.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this last weekend and for the new life, the hope that we have through the risen Christ. We thank you for everything that we have. We pray once again for this meeting, for our county commissioners, for the decisions that they'll make, that they would be your decisions, that they would do the most, the best for the people here in our county. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Baker,
Present.
Johnston,
Here.
Peterson,
Yes, ma'am.
Painter,
Here.
Mahar,
Present.
Carr,
Yes.
Gone.
Here.
You have a copy of our newly structured meeting agenda. Next on the list is the agenda approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Peterson.
I would like to add under new business, two different things if I could. One, the blight ordinance. That would be number 4. And then number 5, the Veterans Affairs office, please.
4 is the blight ordinance. Number 5 is Veterans Affairs. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Johnston.
I'd move to approve the agenda as amended.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda as amended. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Everyone have a copy of the meeting minutes, the last meeting, March 27th, 2023.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair, excuse me, Commissioner Johnson.
I'd move to approve the minutes from our March 27th, 2023 meeting.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes, the last regular meeting, March 27th, 2023 is presented. Discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comments.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hello.
Good to see you. Kathy Bresnahan, Pine Township. I'm standing here today as a concerned voting member of the Commission on Aging Executive Board. It is an understatement for me to say how disappointed I am in you and the way the Montcalm County Board of Commissioners handled the email and request for a meeting from COA board member with his concerns regarding excuse me, got hiccups. Request for a COA director to hire transportation director. Did it occur to you before you met with him to wonder why he was a lone wolf? Or ask if he had other members that would like to join him? How about questioning his motive, his real motive?
She's talking about Chuck.
Who met with?
Can you hear? Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Here are the numbers, and no, you did not ask what the real motive was. The personal motive behind his email and secret meeting. You met with him and you took away ammunition to the little bullion question, Ryan Dreyer's ability to run the COA department. But did you contact Ryan? Did you tell him that somebody was here that was questioning him? No. That person came here to do but one thing, and that was to sabotage Ryan's job as their director. And he did it successfully. These actions on the part of Mr. Heeskamp, and you all does not show that all too forgotten transparency of this board. I am speaking today out of concern for some of your employees, directors, and department heads. Do better. Due diligence will go a long way for the truth. It is tough, I know, for some of you to find respect while sitting there in front of your employees. And on March 13th, you showed your ugly colors by hammering Mr. Dreyer as you requested a motion for a transportation director. Did you hammer Mr. Heeskamp in the same way? Or did you welcome him with open arms, looking for dirt to throw at Mr. Dreyer? It came across as the latter. You praised the $50,000 grant for a parking lot, a pet project of Mr. Heeskamp's, calling it a great project. Great? I don't know. Necessary? Yes. I agree that parking lot needs to get fixed. I'm not sure it deserves a title of a great project. Request for an additional position, Director of Transportation, was met with belittling and bullying statements and questioning towards Ryan Dreyer. He was able to show that the money is available, but that is not where you wanted to go with questioning. The job's already done, correct? So adding this position would make it so you guys don't have to work so hard. What the heck was that? What did you mean? It was cold and it was a calculated statement. And I'm sure it was based upon your pre-secret meeting with Mr. Heeskamp. Or was it? Is that who you are? By asking this question, are you indicating that the employees are lazy? That Mr. Dreyer isn't doing his job? It sure sounded that way. As a retired director of transportation, let me tell you, the position is not just to schedule rides here and there. It entails much, much more than scheduling rides. Unless you have not been a director of transportation, I suggest you find out the work that the position requires. In this case, a logistics manager will not only have to schedule rides here and there, but also take on the angle of care and concern for the senior citizens of Montgomery County, which, by the way, passed yet another millage in the support of the way the director is running this position, or this department. I was baffled at the comment regarding the bachelor's degree in social science for work experience in the human service field. What degree would work better than the one that has the study of human behavior? Accounting, civil engineering? Getting somebody to schedule transportation here and there takes more than hiring a 16-year-old with a valid license. I would really like you to go back to the executive board and get a consensus on this. Really? After that secret meeting, do you think we will ever find Mr. Heeskamp on board with us? No. He's got you to back him up. Maybe it was possible you should have said, you, Mr. Heeskamp, go back and find common ground with the other board members. You seem to be at odds with them, but you didn't. You didn't. You kicked the other members in the teeth and pretty much stated our voice or vote does not count, but it does.
Excuse
Please
me.
visit the department.
We're,
Yes.
we're just about 5 minutes instead of 3.
One more.
Okay.
Visit the department, speak to the employees, think about what these people do to help our senior citizens. Speak to the other 5 board members. How do they feel about how it's doing? I want to thank the one commissioner that had the herewithal to contact me and ask me about the person behind the email and his request for this meeting. He asked, what motive does he have? Why was he alone? I thank you. I thank you for your due diligence to work through the request with more than one viewpoint. And I am proud to have worked with you and more excited to know you are going above and beyond. I'm just going to leave you with a few things that when I talk to employees, this. Finally, it's a joy to come to work again. This is working for Ryan. It's really nice to work for someone that literally cares about the senior citizens. I'm just so happy to come to work after years of it just being a job. Please do better. You can do better.
Thank you. Any other public comments? If not, Vice Chairman Peterson with tonight's correspondence, please.
Okay. First up, the Juvenile Court Child Care Fund grant request. That is on page 9 of your packet. I would assume you've all read through this. Brenda can probably talk a little bit more to this. Christy, did you want to come up here? Okay. You look so prepared, so I figured you wanted to come up here.
I said it all in paper, but do you have any questions? It won't affect the general fund.
I guess my first question is, this is an increase of about 41,000,
Yep.
correct? And you're going to add a part-time person, and what was the
Just
other
update our
caveat? What's that?
tether program.
Okay. What's the cost for a part-time person gonna be?
At 20 to 25 hours, it should be around 25 to 30,000.
And then the other 10 to, well,
Well,
10 to
they'll,
15.
right, because they'll be working directly with families, so they might have extra expenses, educational expenses, things we find out the kids don't have, but that'll all come out of that. I think we'll still have plenty left over.
And potentially find a better electronic monitoring system is I guess that says to me that the one we have in place is not
Right, and
great.
it's free. It's through the state of Michigan,
Okay.
and they're easy to cut off.
Oh. So
Don't put
I guess
them in
tethers is basically what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what I guess you think there's enough money in that that'll be left over to beef
Yeah,
that
and I think
program?
for some of our more difficult kids, I could use, a better tether program for maybe the first time the state program could use. So I think I'll do both,
Okay.
and we'll just watch it.
Does anybody have any other questions for Christy? Well, she's up here.
This is basically money we have to spend.
Right.
So
Right, and if I don't spend, so I have it set up now. I've worked closely with Brenda over the years to make sure I have kind of some other avenues to use it. So for instance, I have one probation officer's sum of her salary in there in case we don't use the whole 15,000 or from now on the 56, to kind of watch it the last few months and add some salary in to get the 100% reimbursement.
So, and just playing devil's advocate here,
Mhm.
if the funding goes back from 56 to 15, would you eliminate that position, or would you?
Yes.
Okay.
And the funding should not go back. This is funding that was supposed to be increased since probably the I don't know the date for sure, that maybe the 90s, early 2000s with inflation that never did, maybe 80s actually. So it was put in the statute that it's there, so it should stay. But yeah, I can make that very clear.
Okay.
Contingent. Yep.
Anybody else have anything? If not, Mr. Chairman, I would move to increase the overall fiscal year 23 child care fund from $726,500 to $768,020 to include increase in the basic funding or basic grant funding from the state of Michigan and allow the hiring of a part-time staff person in the juvenile court office.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Discussion.
I guess I didn't ask Brenda, is this okay with you? Is this, yeah,
Just gotta spend it, so.
okay?
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine.
Oops.
Whoa,
It's on.
that's it, we take it back. All right, next up, 64B District Court reclassification request. Mr. Wagner is here to speak on that. There is an attached memo in your packet. It starts on page 16. But I am sure Brian is going to fill us in. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Good evening, board. This is a request from district court to reclassify our current clerk 1 position to a clerk 2 position. Ultimately, in my memo outlines quite a bit of this. We've had a vacancy. There's Judge, he had a few warrants to issue this evening. So, but ultimately with district court, we have had a vacancy since early March. Our probation clerk resigned, taking a job with the state of Michigan. It was work from home, and ultimately she was earning more per hour. So after that occurred, we wanted to take pause and evaluate the needs of the court, really determine what we were going to do, and seek out ultimately what direction we wanted to take. The district court has undertaken quite a few technological updates in the last 6 months or so. One of those being the collect application. We've seen an increase in collections efforts, not rather than a one lump sum payment due at sentencing. The court's now offering payment plans, so we've gotten a little more adept at leveraging the technology that we have, adding more on. We're now fully we're full bore with Lean, and that data entry we're soon to add on with the warrants out of the clerk's office as well. So that's in short order. The hang up has been Michigan State Police. I don't think that's been any of our offices here. We've been pestering them consistently. So I think we've got that figured out. It was just finer details. I've received notification that we are in round 3 of the MyFile program, which is ultimately an electronic filing system and data management storage system for all civil records. Within a year and a half after that is fully implemented, the criminal side will be going to that as well. And then we've got our probation caseload coming in, and then effective tomorrow, April 11th, the state has implemented Clean Slate, which has led to significant work on our staff's end as it pertains to automatic set-asides of certain convictions, and then reviewing files and criminal records and criminal histories to ensure that we're not disseminating information we shouldn't be. So I say that because with our current clerk 1 to clerk 2 ratio, we're starting out at about $13.50 an hour, and I've surveyed the other courts in our local areas, and we're a little bit, and by a little bit I mean a lot, we're a few dollars less an hour for their entry level clerks. Gratiot is about $16.50 an hour. Ionia just posted a traffic clerk today for $18.50, I believe, and so these are These are positions that are very similar, and we're requiring a lot more out of our staff than what we had historically done when the clerk 1, clerk 2 divide was created. So I make the request today to give the court position authority for clerk 2 so that we can compete with local courts or our neighboring counties, and so that we are not just a training ground. I fear if we hire somebody in at $13 an hour, we train them on all of these systems, and all of our surrounding areas are also implementing those same things, that we're going to lose them. And we'll lose them quickly before they get to the point of being able to get to a clerk 2 spot. So with the position being open since the start of March and presenting it today, our budget would be able to absorb that additional cost that it would take for this year. And then I would also add that the court has our revenues are above where they should be for this time last year, and where they're really on pace. We're at about 58%, should be at 54. Our expenses are at about 49%. So we're doing better on the revenue side than expected last year. We're about on par with expenditures. So the cost to increase for the remainder of this year from a clerk 1 to a clerk 2 would be about $2,700. And so it's about $6,600 for next year overall. So this would be a reoccurring cost. We would look to build that into our budget next year. And of course, this would be for training somebody that hopefully recruiting and hiring somebody that may have a little bit of experience that we could probably potentially poach from other courts instead of having them do that to us. So I would be willing to entertain any questions or comments.
Brian, just catch me up to speed. So you've had a court clerk 1 position open since March last month and haven't been able to fill it, or you've gotten applicants that haven't really tripped your trigger?
We had a clerk 1 that was hired, and we promoted her to a clerk 2 because she has taken the necessary steps to get there. But ultimately, I've held off on posting. All of the other departments that have had postings in this time frame that struggled to hire were also posting at a rate of pay higher than what the court was as well. So I didn't want to muddy the waters too terribly or limit our pool. Somebody sees $13.50 an hour for a court clerk. They're looking to apply it at other agencies or private businesses.
So you have in your staffing summary, this is just a lateral move. You have an open position, or you're asking us to create a new position?
There's an open position.
Okay.
Yep. We now have a clerk 1 position. The clerk 2 was vacant.
Yep.
We promoted
So
somebody.
you
to clerk 2.
effectively just want a couple of clerk 2s and not
Yeah, that's
the
it.
clerk 1.
Yeah. I'd like to eliminate the clerk 1 position out
We'll
of
get
our.
to that when we get to it right now.
But I think this de facto does that, and it keeps us competitive and at the market where everybody else is at.
And this is the only clerk 1 position you have left.
Yes, sir.
Actually, it would be, yeah.
Does anybody have anything for Brian or the judge while we've got him here?
Who sets the designations and who sets the pay scale for the designations of clerk 1 and 2?
There's a contract that has it, and then there's different requirements. And generally, what happens is historically after a year, if they've made it past the requirements and they're meeting the obligations necessary, then we go before the board and ask to move up to a clerk 2. This is generally how it's happened historically. And basically, everybody after their first year, if they're still with us, 1 or 2 years, they get bumped up. I think some of went maybe two. Brenda might actually know that better than. There's been a couple maybe that went 2 years.
Most, yeah.
It's hard to say.
That's
COVID
historical.
happened in one of it, so I mean, it was just kind of
Are
But
these
yeah.
terms, sorry, Judge, are these terms that are used statewide?
no,
Okay.
no, it's
No.
just under our
No.
contract, and I'm not sure if the other departments have them or not. To be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a bifurcated system. And so we really have deputy court clerk is split between 1 and 2. Courts are phasing that out. I talked to the court administrator in Isabella County, and that was one of the things that they had done as well, because the pay scale was so much below the market for their clerk 1 that they just said, okay, we're going with the clerk 2 as kind of the standard. And that would put us on par with surrounding counties. Newaygo County, for example, hires in starting 1582, and they only have a court clerk. Gratiot is 1652, and then Ionia only court clerk, no 1 or 2 designation.
From here on out, we would start them at a clerk 2.
We'll do it on a case by case basis. For now, we'll talk about that when we get into.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal with it. That way there, we don't have to keep coming back and making requests to the board over and rehashing it. But that's the idea, is that we'd be able to be competitive on a regular basis and be able to retain the employees that we do hire and start to invest resources in.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have anything for these two guys? I don't doubt the validity of any of this, but I just feel like we're getting now to the point to where we are just increasing money and people are still quitting. And it's nothing against this or this position. It's just, at some point this is all gotta stop, hopefully. But I think this is a valid ask. But do you think it's going to bring anybody in?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've in my experience, I've hired court clerks and support staff, and I just fear that being in a position where we're paying below what other courts are, and with them actively posting, I think that kind of cuts us off at the knees, so to speak. So I think this will bring some folks in. We did well with our recruitment on probation officers, and our probation officer wage is very competitive compared to other counties. I think we'll be able to draw folks in. And we'll see some folks. I'm sure of that.
And remind me what the starting per hour wage is going to be then.
It would be $16.52. So I think I misspoke when I said Gratiot's was $16.52. That would be our starting wage. Theirs is $16.50 ish. So
We can't let them outdo us.
So
That 2 cents means something. Does anybody else have anything for Brian or the judge? If not, I would move to authorize the district court clerk 1 position reclassification to clerk 2.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Works out for you.
Appreciate it. I think your concern is the same as mine.
Yeah.
I don't. Right there with you.
Oh, well.
We'll see.
All right, next up on page 17, concrete projects bid approval request. Our maintenance director is here to tell us about concrete projects. Again, I think that all is starting on 18, 19. I guess the descriptions start more towards the 20s. Hi, Doug.
Hello.
What you got?
So we have quite a few concrete projects that need to be done or should be done. Maybe I should put it that way. So we've got 8 of them listed. 8 of them that we bid out with 3 different contractors. We put it out to 7 contractors total. We had 4 show up for the walkthrough and 3 that actually priced it out. Tried to give them enough work that they could mobilize and be here for a time period rather than 2 days mobilization, 1 day work. So this is what we came up with. I don't know if you guys have this list
Yep.
So priority was, of course, the recycle pad. That was priority one, just because we've given them that piece of property to utilize and things are rolling for that. Then the second one was the work at Animal Control. Their concrete is busted up, sidewalk almost non-existent, makes it hard to salt or shovel or do anything in the winter. And then that was going to allow for them a sidewalk where they pretty much walking the dogs. They beat it right down to no grass left. So it's muddy most of the year. Third one was the concrete security post. That was discussed in a security meeting almost 2 years ago. Couldn't get contractors to come in and bid that as a single project because it was so small. So that got thrown into this one. Next was BVM sidewalk. They have a parking lot that they have to walk in the driveway to get to the sidewalks that go to the building because they have nothing in front of where they park to connect those two areas. If you got any questions while I'm going through these, please feel free to ask. Number 6 was a dumpster pad at the jail. That would be next to the caged area where they keep I never remember what they call that.
Impound lot.
Impound lot, thank you. Where we would move them from in front of the maintenance pole barn because that is it's a site hazard. And with the new building, it's going to be worse yet because they blocked that intersection. So moving them across the street and a little bit to the east, putting a new pad there for them. The pad underneath them right now is where all the water collects. So when they take out the garbage, they have to stand in puddles after it rains. Dumpster pad up here at the admin building. We have the same situation up here. Everything just sits on the ground. Happens to be a low spot there as well. And then the last one is replacement of walk at the courts. That would be on the south side of the parking lot that runs east and west from the main entry clear down to the end of the prosecutor's wing. That sidewalk is only 4 feet wide. We can't keep either one of the tractors on it. The tire keeps falling off when we're trying to plow it. That one is not real high on my priority list. If we wanted to eliminate it, we could, but it would be nice to have it wider so that we can plow it effectively. If not, we'll just end up tearing up the yard and making it wider that way so we can plow it in the winter.
So Doug, I see in your whatever you call it here, I guess your bid, you have two options for us. Is that just to maximize the bang for your buck, or is this, I guess, what's the option to create two contracts? What's that say?
Well, it just, I don't know. I just threw it out there as an option for you guys. Money wise, we save about $500 by doing it this way. Those two numbers were fairly close. It would give them both some work. They're both local contractors. I have contacted both of them. Both of them were in agreement to the asterisks on this page denotes which projects they would get, which ones they were low on. And it worked out to, less than about $4,000 difference between their two bids. So they were both in agreement that if you guys wanted to do it that way, they would do it that way. If you guys want a single contractor, we'll do a single contractor.
What would be easier for you, I guess?
It doesn't matter. I was thinking time frame wise, two contractors, we might get it done quicker,
True. Brenda, would this be a capital improvement project?
All but the
expense?
recycling pad.
Right.
That would come out of solid waste.
Right.
Or the donations, or the contributions Mark Saban is drumming up. But the rest of those, from the second one down, those would come out of
And we have quite a
capital improvements.
fund balance in capital improvement to support this.
Yep, easily.
And I think if our maintenance director is saying that they need to be done, it should be definitely looked at. Does anybody have any questions for Doug?
I have a quick question. These are both local contractors, these first two,
Correct.
Trademark and Flat River.
That was kind of our idea for splitting the job up. We give each one a.
The third guy is from Isabella County, but as you can see, his price was considerably higher anyway, so I didn't include him in any of the projects.
And they don't mind playing in the same sandbox together.
I emailed both of them. They both responded with that would work.
Anybody else have anything for Doug?
Well, do you see any downside to option 2?
I do not. Does Doug?
I don't. Like I say, just time frame. I want to make sure that we can get the recycling pad done when we need it done. Same way I don't want animal control half to our part and then something happen, you know?
Right.
Because I like the idea of having two local contractors instead of one.
Right there with you.
Spread the wealth.
Share the wealth a little bit.
I guess with that being said, if nobody's got anything else, I would move to create two contracts for various portions of the concrete projects spelled out by our maintenance director, one with Trademark Construction for $25,740 and one with Flat River Concrete for $26,100 to be paid out of capital improvement and
Solid waste.
solid waste.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to create two contracts for various portions of the concrete projects. One with Trademark Construction for $25,740 and one with Flat River Concrete for $26,100 to be paid for out of capital improvement and solid waste. Discussion.
I assume this work will be done this year?
Mhm.
Yes.
As soon as possible, hopefully.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Do I get to write my name in any of these patches of concrete, like handprint or anything?
You gonna do a show up?
Okay, perfect. All right, next up, Republic Services Compactor Proposal Request. It's on page 30 of your packets. Looks like they want to make it official with the Stanton Recycling Center. It'll allow them to proceed with the project on their end. And does anybody have any questions on this? I think we've already made it pretty apparent that we're all in favor.
Yeah, this just gives the go ahead to build the compactors to our specs. And when we're serious.
If nobody's got any objections, then I would move to allow the controller to sign the new service lease proposal with Republic Services for the Stanton compacting units with the monthly expense to come from solid waste fund. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion on this. Is this the same way that we approached the one in Lakeview? Would you've signed that one on
Mhm.
behalf of the county or the solid
Yep,
waste?
I
then?
believe so. I'll double check, but I believe so.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next up is county employee safety training request. It looks like Brenda can speak a little bit more to this.
So, Mr. Valentine, we had reached out to him in December and we're gonna try, the employees have conveyed a desire to seek some, updated training, safety training. Ooh, do you remember when we went to MCC and did that, Chris? How many years ago has that been? 10, 12? They had hosted classes over there for the employees to go over there and do it. So we had to take time off work to go over there and do it. And we went in waves or in sessions. Gary Valentine is offering to do it here for us in-house. And in order to get the employees to go, my desire is to have everyone go. We're asking to close this building an hour early on June 14th and the court complex an hour early on June 19th, since how they're working now. And they don't have any court stuff scheduled yet. So it's closed at 3:00 for an hour and a half to 2 hour long session.
If they go past 4:00, do we have to pay them overtime?
They can comp it, or they could work out a way to, with their department heads, to leave a half an hour early or whatever another day. It's just up to that department head, how they want to handle it. In my office, we would comp it. Or we might leave early. I don't know. It just depends on the.
So what is this training? I mean, is it hand-to-hand combat? Is it?
I believe it's like active shooter type, what to do in the case of, how to respond to it, react to it.
Just start blasting, right?
I can't, I don't carry, so I won't be blasting.
Does anybody have any questions for Brenda on this?
It was a Wednesday and a
Monday.
Monday.
Why are you trying to come over and?
No, I just wondered what days of the week we're working out.
And we could get the word out, on our Facebook page, our website, postings on all the doors, so people know in advance that we'll close early that day for an hour.
So your idea would be the building's gonna be locked at 3:00
Mm-hmm.
and all the people in the building are gonna be at training
We'll be up here in training.
both days.
Well, just this building would be locked on the 14th, and then the court complex on the 19th.
These people wouldn't go out there and vice versa.
I'm just wondering if you have somebody from that building come over to this building on that day.
They could, like for circuit court, they're here 1 week and in Ionia 1 week. So on the 19th, half of that staff will be in Ionia. So they may come up here, or parts of them. That's kind of the caveat of having two of them. If someone's not able to do one, they could possibly do the other.
So the training will be held here in-house at each place.
There is an expense to it. I believe he quoted me $375 a session. So I could pay that out of the controller's budget, or we do have a public improvements fund that we can pay it out of.
Okay.
Anybody else?
So if I came down here with an urgent need at the clerk's office at 3:30 on the 14th, what would happen?
They would not be letting you in.
The door be
You
locked?
can have a number.
There'd
On
be a sign on there that says we're closed?
There'll be a sign there. We can have a phone number on it.
That'd be good.
So
I think the clerk's
Somebody can
office
call.
used to be closed on Wednesdays anyways.
I don't know that.
Oh,
yes, that's a good idea, Phil. We'll put a phone number on there so somebody can call if there's an emergent need.
Did you say it's only gonna be like an hour? Is that?
Yeah, from 3 to 4. We close at 4 normally. So yeah, it'd just be an hour for each of those days.
does anybody else have anything on this? I think with the way the world is anymore, this is a necessity. Sound like you want to say something, Phil? What you got?
Well, I agree the training's worthwhile, but I do want to have that phone number for that one person that shows up and this is the last day they can get something.
Yeah.
And they wait till the last minute and they find out,
Yep, I
At
agree
some
with you.
point,
they've been open till 4:00 every
Yeah,
day
that's
for the
right.
last year.
got to turn it inward.
But what is, I understand where you're coming from, and nice to have a backup plan for those people, but what is going to be the reality? They call that number. Chris and her staff are all up here doing the training. What are they going to be able to do for them?
Depends what their need is.
So then they just step away from the training and go down there and let that person in and deal with it and void the training for that office.
It would depend what they needed. What they
I
need
wouldn't-
might take 5 minutes. What they need might take 10 minutes. What they need might easily wait till the next day.
True.
I don't know.
Who makes that call?
I thought they'd give me your phone number.
No, you're the one bringing it
Probably.
up. I think it's Phil Cohn's number.
Okay, I'll take a
I
message.
think whoever's department it is would make that call.
I understand the validity of what you're saying, but at the same time, if for some reason June 14th is the last day they can get something, it's kind of on them. At 3:30, should have planned a little better. I don't know. Maybe even put an ad in the Daily News, then it'll really be out there.
We'll be on the county's website, prominently displayed, I'm assuming.
First thing they'll see, boom, right on top. Picture of Phil like
If they're
this.
looking for a department, right? What department do I need? When are they open? And it clearly says on there, on this particular day, close at 3, I'm good with it.
Perfect.
But
Anybody else? If not, I would move to allow the controller to close the administration building on June the 14th and the court complex on June the 19th at 3 p.m. to allow for employee training. Support.
It's been moved and supported to allow the controller to close the administration building on June 14th and the court complex on June 19th at 3 p.m. to allow for employee training. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, last in the consideration is the warrant report. It'll be found starting on page 36. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about the warrant report? It is nice that we have this cheat sheet now. Thanks again to Brenda for now I at least know what I'm looking at as far as who's spending what. If there's nothing there, then I will move to approve and allow for the appropriate signatures. Warrant number 04102023, the amount of $360,788.86.
Support. It's been moved and supported to approve warrant number 04102023 in the amount of $360,788.86. Discussion. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next up is the consent agenda, items 7 through 10. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns about that? If not, I would move to place items 7 through 10 of the consent agenda on file. Support.
It's been moved and supported to place items 7 through 10 of the consent agenda on file. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Rest of it is for your information and resolutions from other counties. If nobody has anything on that, that will be your board correspondence for Monday, April 10th.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Peterson.
Thank you.
Next is committee reports. We don't have any. New business, item 1, clerk correspondence. Item 2, controller correspondence.
So I placed a memo on your desks about the opioid committee. We kind of went over that last time, and I met with Liz Braddock last week, and her and I got together and came up with a list of names. Now, if there's someone on there that you don't feel you want on there, I can remove them. Those are the ones. There were a few people that declined. So those on the list we had. So those are the ones that have accepted. If you have, Charlie talked to me beforehand, and he has someone that indicated a desire to be on that committee. So if anyone has any other additions, you want me to reach out to them?
Do we approve this list if somebody else wants to be on it, if it's a credible person, or?
If Charlie wants to share, do you want to share who that person is, or?
Yeah, she is a constituent who reached out to me probably 3 months ago, and she's a physician's assistant. And she lost her brother to an opioid overdose, and just asked if there was any sort of committees that she could join and help with. And I told her I would keep an eye out for something to come along. And so this committee came along, and obviously I thought it'd be perfect for her. Her name, I believe, is Amy. I don't know her well. I believe her name is Amy Johnson, but I do have her contact information. And I do know she is a physician's assistant, I believe, with Spectrum.
She was right here.
Okay.
My mother, yeah.
Well, as it stands right now, we have 8 people on there, correct?
Yeah.
And if it went, is this going to be run like by Robert's rules, and you guys are going to vote, or is it just going to be, well, I guess we're all okay with it?
No, I think we're going to vote.
Well, then we'd need a 9th person anyways, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it would be best to have an odd number.
Or we're going to take that bottom name off there. I'd be okay with that.
That's where I was gonna go, but you
Well,
said it, so.
no. I mean, if Commissioner Mahar is, I would think 9 people is appropriate. We used to have that many commissioners.
She does have a sparrow.org email, so I think she's with Sparrow now.
Oh, through Sparrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, she has an office here in town. She's a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
Yeah, just north of town, yeah. Just before the court.
Does anybody have any objections to adding Amy Johnson to this committee? Do we even know that she wants to do it?
Oh, yeah, very much. In fact, she followed up with me this week, asking if I need any more information on it. She's very passionate.
Okay. Does anybody have any objections to adding Amy Johnson to this list of troublemakers?
No, I do not.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Then I would move to allow the controller to form the opioid committee as amended and proceed with the task of spending the opioid settlement dollars according to the allowable spending areas. Don't everybody jump at once.
It's been moved and supported to allow the controller to form the opioid committee as presented, as
You wanna say
amended,
yeah.
and proceed with the task of spending the opioid settlement dollars according to the allowable spending areas. Discussion. Proceed with spending those. Is that recommending back to us or just
Yes,
spending them?
Yes, no, we'll recommend back to you.
That was my,
Mhm.
when I read that, I'm like, what?
Finding ways to spend it maybe was a better.
Would you like me to amend my motion to state as such, or?
I think
We're all aware of how
we're on that
how it'll
page.
go.
Any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Alrighty, and then the only other thing I wanted to remind you, I'm gonna be on vacation starting next Tuesday. We'll return the following Tuesday, so I'll miss the next board meeting. So just so you're all aware.
Oh, we are gonna get wild.
Maybe I'll watch.
Don't you dare.
Hmm.
Well, I'm taking a laptop with me so I can keep up on email, so
Okay, anything else?
that's all I've got.
Number 3, chair correspondence. I wanted to talk about the blight ordinance, but that's listed here under number 4. So
Oh, I didn't mean to take your
No,
thought.
that's-
We didn't talk about.
no, perfect. So number 4 is the blight ordinance. Brenda had given Vice Chairman Peterson and I a copy of what our attorney had proposed after the last meeting for us to look at. I guess I found it to be very well written, exactly what I had in mind in all areas, right down to the enforcement. Talked briefly with Brenda ahead of the meeting today and Adam. And I think that we would like to disseminate that to all the rest of you and get your feedback on that. Maybe by the end of this week. And then we would, if we're all agreeable and everyone likes it by the end of this week, we would ask the controller to send that to all the township supervisors. What do we have for a date? Monday-ish? You're leaving Tuesday?
Right, so I do it Monday.
Sometime Monday-ish, if we could get, if we all concurred by Friday, then Monday Brenda could send that to the township supervisors. We would ask them to give us yes or no and how much time by the end of that week.
I think that's what Adam wanted.
Well, I just to give us a tentative, can you adopt it, or do you see any glaring weaknesses or anything you just have to have in there? I know when I met with them before, I had said, and I believe that they should have just as much say in this as we do. But I can't imagine them seeing this ordinance and saying there's anything wrong with it. I echo what Chairman Carr says. It is very well written. It's it is right down to, the construction materials. It talks about inoperable trailers, inoperable motor vehicles, building materials, junk. It defines junk. It's a junk vessel as far as watercraft, personal watercraft. There's a nuisance section in there, person, total loss, trailer, vehicle. It touches on everything. So it's very well done for what we need. But I do think that we need the board as a whole to see what they think, and then send it out to the township supervisors, get their blessings on it, and then have them, if they feel so inclined, to adopt it. There is verbiage in here that that says it doesn't have to go through a special meeting or a public hearing or anything like that. So they can adopt it at their regular board meetings.
Should they choose to.
Should they choose to. But then we will be able to safely enforce, our sheriff will be able to safely enforce the blight ordinances inner township wise. But that's on you guys. If that's what you guys want to do, go for it.
What do you think? Does that sound like a reasonable plan to keep that chain moving forward? Get it out, get you guys a copy of it today and try and get it. Pardon?
You guys want a hard copy?
You
Does
just
anybody
got-
want a hard copy?
Just get
matter
an
to me.
email if it's.
Digital's fine.
It just-
Brenda just sent it to us.
Anything else on that? Number 4, blight ordinance. If not, number 5 is the Veterans Affairs Commissioner, Vice Chairman Peterson.
Mine coming through so late. So it's been kind of brought to my attention through just, being in this building. Our Veterans Affairs office is growing exponentially. They're doing a great job down there, but they're running out of room. I know that in years past, we've talked with our clerk about consolidating her offices. I know in my perfect view of how this would work, we would take equalization, move them up to the clerk's office, move the clerk's office out to the court clerk's office. So that way our Veterans Affairs could have all of that area down there with equalization moving out. I hope that would quench that thirst for a while, but they're doing great things down there. And I think they need as much room as they can. Hopefully that's going to be enough. I'm sure there will be a spirited debate with our clerk about the reasons that we can't move her out there. Just talking with some people, I know that there's enough room out there. There's enough room in retention if need be. I know talking with the controller, we contracted through, was it Graphic Solutions? Graphic Science to scan and digitize a lot of records out at juvenile court, and it wasn't the $1.2 million or whatever the first bids were that we asked to get back. Oh geez, that had to have been 2019 when we asked the clerk to go out and get bids. So I know in 2017 our clerk said that she would be willing to combine her offices, and she just needed a year to do it. It's now 2023, hasn't done it. I know she's expressed a lot of security concerns, especially with voting being as crazy as it is now. I believe that being out in the court complex with a armed guard at the only public entrance would satisfy that need. And just in the dealings with the Register of Deeds clerk combination debate that we had for a while, I know before our clerk had said, there's no way I can cross-train these people. It's just too different. Well, during the Register of Deeds talk, it was said that she can cross-train her employees. So I think Register of Deeds and Vital Records clerk are just as far apart as Vital Records clerk and court clerk. I believe it will be doing a better service to the constituents having the clerk entirely out there. We won't have people coming up here looking for court clerk. We won't have people out there looking for Vital Records. It'll give our Veterans Affairs more room that they desperately need. Oh, what else was there? Other than that, I'm open to suggestions on other ways to solve this problem.
I have a question, if I may. If the clerk were to vacate the space in this building, just roughly how many, if you know, roughly how many usable square feet would we be getting available for Veterans Affairs? Just ballpark.
Deb, how many offices do you have down there?
We have our main office and then the small office off from that. And then our back area where we've got our file cabinet.
What's your rough guess, Doug? Doug's back there still.
Doug, what would you guess is square footage wise in there?
Usable.
One office got to be 120 square feet. Main office is probably 3 times that. And then, like she said, there's a back area that they use for the file cabinet. That couldn't be used as an office. Part of the problem with the Veterans Affairs, from my understanding, is they're all sitting on top of each other, so there's no real
Privacy.
security with who they're talking with or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the part of the thing is, you know, especially with our veterans, they're probably a little hesitant to come and ask for help as it is, and being able to hear other people talking through the walls, that probably deters them a little bit more from really expressing their needs. So I think that's another facet of this that needs to. I just think that this one thing can be encompassed in one move, and it would be better for everybody. I'm sure there is opposition to that thought, but I think at the end of the day, it is the board's decision. It's it's well within the board's purview and within their power to provide an adequate space for Veterans Affairs and also an adequate space for the clerk. I think this does that along with equalization. I think it's a good idea. I would be open to hear what anybody else thought about it.
So we can get better security for the clerk's people.
Yep.
And we can get basically some amount of privacy for the veterans. I mean, I can't imagine, like, when people go into public health, right? They have their own meeting rooms where they can discuss their issues.
Right.
It's not, so one person is 5 feet away talking to somebody else.
Right.
I can't imagine having to go through that, trying to describe my issues or something with.
Well, and I think there is offices in there that they can go to. I just think that the walls are thin enough to where people can hear each other conversing. But either way, yeah,
I'm trying to think of the downside, and I haven't thought of it yet. So if somebody has it, I'd like to know.
So I don't think that this is something that gets added to an agenda. I think this is something that you come to a department head and you actually talk to them about it. I don't recall seeing many of you in the clerk's office lately. A few of you did do the leadership MyCom, so you were through the office, particularly the office here. I don't know where you think you are going to put everything that's needed between these two offices combined out in one very small space in the court complex. Is it true that graphic scientists or graphic science will do the imaging and the microfilming? Yes, but we are working with state archives, have been working with state archives. They're terribly slow. The documents up until 1940 cannot be imaged and destroyed. They have to be sent to state archives. So we need an adequate and appropriate number of how many documents are we actually going to be scanning. You don't want to scan entire files in the court office because that's just wasteful. You want to do only what opens and closes and final judgments. So we're waiting for experts. This board is the one that moved that deadline up as far as the COVID deadline for the money. So I literally said during the board meeting on the record to Brenda, I'm not going to be able to meet that deadline. And she said, your money is already set aside. And then you spent it. So
Would argue that. I don't recall that at all.
we can
I don't
we
either.
can
I
pull
don't
that back.
recall that.
And I actually saw the spreadsheet where the money was sitting in there. Our first bid came back at 400,000. The next one was around 230. And I think I had about 236 budgeted in that line. So Brenda and I
How
will have
many
to
years
look
ago
at
was
that.
that?
It was just last year when we moved up the deadline for the COVID money, for all of the requests to be turned in on the parks, all of that. And I believe Michelle's aware of that as well. I just don't know where you think you are going to put everything. This isn't a perfect plan. I did not come to the board in 2017 and say I would combine. That was during budget cuts. It was, listen, you're reducing us to the point where we're going to be forced into doing something that really shouldn't be done. I was not offering that. I've never been for that. This board, this public body is the one that decided to split those offices when they constructed that court complex. We can go back and look at that. Pat was on the board. I think Ron was on the board at that time as well. This board made that decision. And so you take something apart and then 22 years later, you want to put it back together. It doesn't work like that. That's 22 years worth of additional things and files and requirements. It's just not something that's even possible. I would invite you
Is it
all
something that's not
to come in
possible or
and to
just
take a
something that you
look
don't want
at
to
what kind
do?
of space we have in both offices and what is actually required. I realize Veterans Affairs needs additional space. It was my understanding they were going to move part of it into MSU. I don't know what happened to that discussion, but no one has approached me with any kind of discussion about that until this meeting. I don't think that these are the types of things that you just add onto an agenda and blindside department heads with.
Okay.
Chris, are you saying that had you received some of the COVID money that you would have been able to do some things that
We would have been able to relieve some of the filing, the paper. Everything we have is paper. Everything. We would be able to alleviate some of that paper in the retention building because the retention building is getting full. I know that the controller's office did clear out half. We shared a room with them. So now we have the other half of that room, which allows us then to remove some of our vital records, things that have permanent retention periods. You're not talking about a department that has retention periods where we can just throw everything out. You know, like financial records, after 7 years, they're gone. That isn't what happens with the county clerk's office. So I think that this is something that is going to take a study. You guys really need to look at this and see whether or not it's even feasible, because I'm telling you right now, it is not.
So in
And I can tell you right
2017, when
now
you said it was
that
feasible,
we
that
could
it's,
I could get both circuit judges here that are going to say that this is not going to work. The only way it would work is if you expanded the space out there, which would mean moving probate court. There is physically not enough vault space. We have certain things that have to be in vaults. The vaults out there were constructed with splitting the office in half. That's how they were constructed. It was not to move everything. And the Board of Commissioners are the ones that made that decision.
So we can,
What's
yeah,
that,
so
Brenda?
we can make the decision.
So why can't they make a new decision? I
Yeah,
mean,
why can't we
I don't
make a
I'm
understand.
saying
decision
that
to
once you've made a
combine?
decision 22 years ago, how do you undo it?
We
When
reversed
the entire
decisions we made
structure.
a year
Oh,
ago.
We even put the voting equipment. That's not your problem.
You're,
And what
you're
I'm
not
telling you
wrong.
is, it is my problem. And we need the space that we have here. We use it, we need it.
So when you said in 2017 in a memo to the board that you can consolidate your offices,
Say that I couldn't consolidate. I said that I would be forced into consolidating. It is nothing that I ever wanted to take place. You had eliminated or the board had eliminated my staff down to almost absolutely nothing. My hands were tied.
Brenda, have you toured both locations? I mean, do you have an opinion on the size of these vaults and the amount of stuff that would be moved?
Yeah, I know what the size is. We have a lot of, once the shredding project gets done, I believe in August, I think district court's probably gonna have a couple of vaults in the retention building that'll open up too, which is right behind her offices, right behind the central location there. I don't know why they couldn't use those.
Which means you're sending employees outside. And you can't think about a nice day like today. You're sending employees outside constantly to get court files, and you're transferring them in all kinds of weather back and forth into the office.
Until they're
It's too
digitized.
perfect,
The
Too,
vaults down there or outside?
The
she's talking
retention
about
building.
retention.
Mhm. That would only be until they were digitized. I mean, I would think we could get all the records digitized and they'd never have to leave the office.
Is that the biggest thing holding this back?
Holding what back? The combination? No, it's more than that. It's the physical space. It's, you think about all of the voting equipment we have, the retention period on all of the canvassing records. There's a lot. I would encourage each of you to come and take a look at what we have. We've cleaned up everything that we could possibly clean up. We've gone through we have all of those CPL files. They have to be kept. A paper hard copy has to be kept of those. They can't be digitized. We've gone through all of those, eliminated everything we didn't need. We're reusing all of the files. We're doing everything as efficiently as we possibly can be. So I just
so wouldn't we
really
want,
want people to take the
wouldn't we
time.
want the voting equipment in a building that is constantly being monitored by armed officers? I know
It's-
one of your
it's kept
big,
in
I know
a
one of
vault here.
your big complaints is the security in this building. And I think that alone is a huge thing for you.
I am certainly not the only department head in this building. that
Okay,
has
but you're
concerns
the
regarding-
squeakiest wheel
I am
most of the
not.
time.
You are not in on the department head meetings.
So wouldn't that
In
really
fact, Veterans Affairs
solve
is one
your-
of the squeakiest wheels.
yeah, because they need more space.
Oh, because they want security.
So wouldn't that really satisfy your need for more security being out there?
I have zero complaints about the security in the court complex. What I am telling you is there is not the physical space. It's not going to work. Every time we have anything to do with elections, you're going to have to be hiring an officer to let people in and out of that complex.
Isn't there
So
already an
election
officer
night,
there?
they're going to have to, what, excuse me,
Isn't there already an officer out there?
during the night?
No. So we'd have to do it here too, correct?
I don't hire an officer here.
So why would you have to do it out there?
Because you would be allowing people into a secured court complex.
Okay.
Sheriff is never going to allow for that after hours. We would have to hire one of his officers to come in.
We're Stanton PD. They're-
Not in the court complex, I don't believe. I can't speak for the sheriff, but I don't think that would work.
So all the thing that's really holding you up is space, correct?
Space and having access to the files and room for everything and.
So once those files are
Something
digitized
that
though,
can just be thrown at you.
Once those files are digitized,
at
though,
10 o'clock at
then
night when there's been zero discussion.
I think arguably since 2017, when this letter came out that I'm looking at, there has been discussion for almost 6 years. I'm just wondering if space is your only issue.
Space is a very big issue.
Okay, but it's the only issue that's really repeated. You've repeated this whole time is space.
We need with staff, we need the space.
You'll
we
have
need
the
filing
staff.
Systems. We have a lot going on right now. District Court is not the only one that is implementing clean slate tomorrow. So that's being implemented in the circuit court as well. We have 653 files, I believe, that are going to be automatically disappearing, that we have to be on the ball and make sure we aren't releasing any information we're not supposed to be releasing. Those are felony cases that are automatically being set aside. We're going to be right behind district court on my filing. There are so many things that are happening right now.
So having
This
all
is
your
not
employees
a
in
good
one spot
time.
would
Oh,
be
that is terrible.
would be a definite help.
It would not,
Why is that?
because they are very specialized in what they do.
But you can cross train them.
Come on.
You were going to do it with a
Court
register of
and
deeds.
The register of deeds and the clerk's office, much more similar than the vital records here in the court complex.
How?
Very much different
I know you said that before, but how? Give me one example.
because they're specialized in court process.
Okay.
Plus, I need them physically located out there.
Yeah, you'd have.
You
more
had a
people
department
out
head
there.
here that wasn't here for months and months and months, which meant they had enough staff down there that they could help if needed. And it was only during specific times.
Mr. Chairman, seems to me like this problem should be resolved some other way than it's trying to be resolved. So I think we need to move on somehow and work it out eventually, but not here, right? Not now.
This is the same stuff that was said in 17. We'll get to it eventually.
No, I was here then.
Yeah, you were on that same board. It's just, that's what keeps happening. We'll work it out.
No,
We'll
this
work it
isn't the
out.
way to do it, though.
What's the right way to do it?
Well, I'm not sure, but I don't like this way. And I think most people don't approve of it either. So, Mr. Chairman, help yourself.
I understand what you're saying. I think there's some validity to that, but I guess I agree with some of the comments that have been made. We have discussed this before. We have come up with a plan to move forward with it, which stalled out. We're right back in that same situation with Veterans Affairs needing space and been dealt with at some point somehow.
Agreed.
What is your suggestion then if you don't want to move forward with this?
Well, I believe we should move forward, but I don't like this scenario. I don't think we accomplish much doing it this way. Now, if we have to have a meeting to sit down with, like Chris says, we need to sit down and lay out some groundwork and get it resolved. But this is not the way to resolve it.
So what you're proposing is we sit down with the clerk and listen to her tell us everything she just said and say, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And then we just kick it down the road a little while.
I'm just saying, if we come up with a program, we need to sit down and do it. Not in a meeting like this. We just sit down and work some plans out. I mean, if you've got plans, lay them out.
I think I just did.
Yeah.
I think the biggest question is there or is there not enough room to do this? And if there is enough room, then we do it.
But isn't that
There's not.
subjective though? I mean,
Yes and no.
you got desks out there as big as that desk right there. And you say, well, yeah, you obviously can't fit 6 desks in there. It's a huge cubicle. I understand that. But I don't believe that everybody needs a desk that big. When I was there last time, they couldn't even get up around the desk to greet me at the counter. I just don't. I think it's all subjective. It's, we're going to hear every argument why we can't do it. But at the end of the day, it is the board's decision. I feel like the Veterans Office needs room. This is the first solution I came up with. if Commissioner Baker would like to come up here and figure out where else we could shoehorn in something, great. But I don't see anybody jumping at that, I guess. I mean, the whole space thing, yeah, that's fine. That, whatever. You can argue it until you're blue in the face, but it is just all subjective. Maybe someday in a perfect world, we can build a new building and have enough space for everybody, but right now we don't. It's just the case.
I'm telling you that the way that that court complex building was built, it was not constructed for the two different duties of the clerk to be consolidated into one. It was specifically built for just the court function. And all I am asking is that you take the time to visit all of the space that we have. I don't think that's too much to ask. And I think that this is not something that you come to a board meeting and blindside an elected official with. Completely not appropriate.
When you say there's not enough room, and I'm just asking questions here.
Yeah.
Is it that it would be uncomfortable, it would be difficult? I mean, or there just simply isn't. I mean, can you
There is
elaborate on that?
physically not enough space. Right now on a cart downstairs, I have 5 pieces of voting equipment. I have one piece that's being lent out. We have 3 different voting computers, 2 programming computers, printer that goes with that, then just my county computer and monitors. That's just in my space. Then we have a vault that's elections. So all of the election supplies, all of the canvassers, all of the canvas records, the poll books that we have a retention period on, all of the canvas files, we have a permanent retention on. The next space is the elections vault. So, or not the elections vault, the vital records vault, all the birth, death, marriage, CPLs, DBAs, anything else that falls in there. There's a copy machine in there. There's various file cabinets with all different kinds of forms that are required. Then you have the outer office space where there's 2 employees. I don't know where you think you can put all of that into one very small space in very, very small court. I mean, we can only keep 9 years worth of files on hand in the court complex. Everything else goes back to retention. And when we're filing those documents, we're scanning the records, like the orders and things that we know we're going to have access to, just so they're not running back and forth all of the time. But the state court administrator's office hasn't gotten to a point where we are even on the list for my file. District court is, and we should be soon following after them. But we're not in phase 3 or 4.
So you have to go out to retention to get files as it is, even on cold days?
For old files, yes.
Oh,
And we still actively file in those files for front of the court because files remain active for at least 18 years.
Why wouldn't it work that all those files were in that retention building instead of half of them up here and half of them out there? 'Cause you've
What do you
got
mean?
some-
I don't have any court files here.
You've got some in the retention building out there currently.
Court files, yes. We have, I'm going to guess, 8 rooms full of court files.
Why couldn't the files that are here that you need for that job also be in that retention building? That's right.
For the
there by
court,
your
for the
office.
court complex or this right here?
Yes.
For the election records could, but the birth, death, and marriage, I just wouldn't be comfortable with them being in a retention building.
but they could be.
Those are permanent retention periods.
That's the
If they were,
safest-
if they were image and microfilmed, yes, they could go out there.
That's the safest climate controlled records building we own. Why wouldn't that be the best place for them? I'm confused there.
Because of the cleanliness probably of that building. It's just, it collects a lot of dust. All of the records out there are pretty dirty.
That's a climate controlled
I'm
building.
telling you, it's
for
very-
records, and it's not the best that we've got. They're better off in a 100-year-old vault in this building.
In my opinion, yes.
Really?
I'm more than happy to give you a tour of the retention building.
Well, it's kind of a sad state on our retention.
Well, when they redid the roof in the retention building, they shot nails right down through into the roof. You can physically see nails coming through the ceilings.
Well, outside of the records and that, all the voting equipment and the computers for voting and all the things that you mentioned there outside of that equipment, back to Commissioner Mahar's question about the space, is there enough space for the employees, physical space for the employees? Commissioner Peterson talked about desks. Could the employees all have?
Could it be reconfigured? It would be awful tight.
Is there?
Because you've got to think, they don't need just a computer in front of them. They're working with court files, or they're working with indexes. I mean, they need some space. They can't be like you and I are right here.
Right, you can't be right on top of someone and try and expect that they're gonna have enough.
There's just,
Back in the day of those talks, if I remember correctly, you were given an extra employee over similar offices based on the fact that you had 2 offices to staff for holidays, vacations, sick time, and whatever
we had a
else.
part-time employee that went back and forth.
Would there, if your office were combined in one space, one ideal space, would you need the same number of employees that you currently have?
I can't answer that right now. I would need to sit down and actually, I don't know how we could physically have enough space for the number of employees that we have now.
Mr. Chairman, how hard would it be to get if I were going to move offices, I'd want to understand the footprint I'm in now and the footprint I'd be moving to. So how hard would it be to get either from the clerk or from Doug, the footprint and the volume of space currently occupied? Because I'm trying to, I can tour it, but I'd rather see it on paper. The dimensions, the volume.
I think we have a blueprint, don't we, Doug? Couple blueprints?
Of all the space that you
We have blueprints in both
occupy,
buildings.
that'd be useful for me.
Vice Chairman Peterson,
Yes, sir.
it appears you believe there's enough space to make this happen.
What's that?
It appears that you believe there's
Absolutely.
enough space.
Yeah.
Can you explain why you believe there's?
Well, like I say, they have 2 desks out there, and they're a big U shape, essentially a cubicle. And the clerk can say whatever she wants. They need that kind of space, but there's ample clear space on those desks from what I can see. Maybe there's not. When you say stuff about the files, yeah, that's fine. File cabinets fit in the corner really well. It might not be this lavish, 10 feet a desk. Yeah, it might be a little cramped for 5 people to be in there, and the clerk has her own office out there. She could easily store 10 computers in there, I'm sure. She can do it now in her office. It's just, this is just the way it's been. Every time we bring this up, it's, oh, I can't do it. I got to digitize the records. So we go through and we get a quote for it. And weirdly enough, the quotes are just absurdly high. And now when we say,
Everything.
and then when we say, okay, let's not do that because it's too expensive. Now we have a company that digitized juvenile court records, did it for a fairly good price. Our Register of Deeds already has every single one of her
That's by law.
files digitized. It's just digging heels and button heads. That's all this is. And to Commissioner Baker's point, let's think about this for 2 weeks. All it's going to do, we're going to come up here and hear the same stuff. It's just going to be at a different pace.
Every position has different requirements. Kim Kuhn is here. Kim, in the Register of Deeds office. Well, but what I want to point out is that the Register of Deeds is
Commissioner
digitized
Baker's
because
right.
it's hard.
This is getting to be, we're not going to do this back
Okay.
and forth. The thing that I still find interesting or disheartening or whatever the right word is the discussion about the employee space wasn't on the table the last several times that we discussed this. It was always digitizing the records. And I believe that you did make a comment give you a year, and you'd have a plan to move out there. And I don't ever remember any discussion about the fact that the space was built just for one-off. It couldn't be done. Both
I have those
offices
minutes.
couldn't be there.
I can
So
provide you with
I
those.
believe this is new, a new reason why we can't do it from what we had heard in the past about space now, employee space being an issue.
And I realize that that's a long time ago, but I can't see those minutes. And it was part of the discussion. And actually, the building of that complex and the layout of it was decided prior to me taking office. So Angel Gonzalez was included in those discussions of the splitting and the design of that building. So that was even before me.
If we did combine those offices, when would be the best time to do it in a way that wouldn't interfere with you preparing for an election? I'm just out of curiosity.
Well, I can't answer that right now. What I am asking you is that this is, again, not something that you blindside an elected official with, that those of you that haven't looked at all of the space and looked at what's there, I'm not, you can come in and look at it without me being there. I'm fine with that. But you need to look at what exactly are we talking about. I think that Doug can provide you with square footage of what is being used and what is not being used for both of those offices. And I am telling you that there's physically not the space there to do it.
What's going to be your number to say that there's not enough space? What? So you say there's not physically enough space. What's your square footage number that you can say, nope,
I can
there's
just
no
pull
way?
that out of nowhere when I had no
Well, if you
idea
can-
this was
if you can
coming.
be-
I can't give that number to you right now.
If you're sure enough that there's not
I know
enough
that
space,
when
you
we
would
had
think.
discussions before that the talk was that the probate court would have to move in order for us to have enough space and vault space for what had to be stored. And I'm not saying that that discussion happened with the board. It did not.
I've never heard that.
I'm saying that this is not something that should be voted on today.
So in the 2017 memo, when you wrote and
This is
signed,
2023.
it said over the next year, a plan will be put in place to consolidate the two offices into the court complex, but the consolidation will take time due to space issues and complication of union staffing.
That was 2017. This is 2023. Again, being blindsided, no time to look at anything that was discussed back then. I think this is
Respectfully, we've talked about this three
unfair
different
and
times.
Completely disrespectful.
We've
And
talked
it's
about this
just the
3
common
times
theme
now.
that you have been on for the last 2 years.
We've talked about this 3 times.
We have never had a civil conversation about it, and you have never approached me or reached out outside of a public board meeting to have any kind of discussion about this.
So when you
This is completely unfair.
put in your memo that you would put a plan in place and it could be consolidated, but it'll take
I do
time.
not have the memo in front of me. Again,
do.
there was no discussion with you prior to this meeting.
But there's a letter that was 5 years ago. That was before this meeting.
What's the pleasure of the board? Commissioner Baker, I know you had some concerns. What is your view on moving forward with this?
Well, I definitely think it should be looked into further. And it can't be done at this level. It's got to be done in person. Like the clerk points out, maybe a couple, 3 of us need to go in and take down some notes and then have her make a presentation on space and personnel and location. And then we'll discuss it again. But it's been a long time since the 2017 letter. I remember that coming forth. I remember the clerk saying she would try to resolve that matter, and it would take some time to do it. And that's in the letter. So basically, we have a situation that we need to deal with, and we need to, all of us, work on it, or some of us at least. And it doesn't have to be 2 weeks down the road. It needs to be in between the 2 meetings, in my opinion.
Phil, you talked about a blueprint or a footprint plan of the space at both places. What do you see? What do you see for a need?
I like to see on paper, the space, like if I was gonna remodel or something, the space occupied, where people are currently sitting, how much space they're currently taking up. Could I reasonably take 2 people and add them to where 2 people already are? And they would still have adequate workspace. I need that visual. I also need the visual of what's the volume of the vault, how much paper in that vault can be scanned and then moved or scanned and destroyed. I'm not getting a concise answer on that. I don't know the volume. I want cubic feet or cubic yards of volume. If it were me, I would task the county clerk with coming up with a plan,
They did that.
but a more detailed plan.
We are weeks out from an election right now. This is really bad timing.
I didn't say this week. But that's what I would do. If I were managing this whole county, I would task this official with coming up with a plan. And maybe the plan's not feasible, but maybe it is.
Mr. Chairman, is it possible to have somebody come in, that's not from the county, do a study, see if it's even possible? Somebody that knows space and things like that. The state does it all the time in their state buildings. I mean, if they say, no, it's just not even possible at this point, or vice versa, then we'd have somewhere to go with. You can show me blueprints all day long. I don't know. Nothing's going to be apples to apples. So, just an idea.
Okay. Charlie, you mentioned that.
In theory, I mean, combining the offices makes a lot of sense. I mean, it would be the best thing for the county if it can work. I mean, if Vice Chairman's correct, then it works out great. If he's wrong, then we've got an issue and we've got equipment and no space. And so I'm all on board for combining the offices in an effort to help some of these other offices, mainly the Veterans Affairs. I just would like just a little more assurance that we're going to be able to get everything where it needs to be. That's my only holdup at this point.
I think what you're saying makes sense.
How do we get from here to there?
Can we task our maintenance director with measuring the space that's being used here and measuring the space that's being used out there and investigate how many retention vaults are being used and can be jettisoned, and also have our controller contact graphics systems sciences to see how much it would cost to digitize all these records to where it would be a non-issue at this point. I know that was the biggest holdup before, is all the records aren't digitized.
The maintenance director, I don't want to speak for him, but I believe he was indicating in the affirmative that he could perform that task that you were mentioning. Is that correct, Doug?
Yes.
Brenda could do the records thing. The piece about that I'm still not clear on, and I never have been, is we don't have the records digitized now, and we're doing that job. So if the retention's building out there can be cleaned up, a new air handling, whatever it is that is dusty, those records could still be used the same way they're used here without digitizing. I understand digitizing them would be simpler, more efficient, but currently we're not doing it that way.
But if you don't digitize, there's physically not the space to put it together.
I think if you reorganize that retention building and put some people in other places, it's close. Would you say?
No, I really do disagree with that. But I welcome you to come in and show me what I might not be seeing.
But either way, if some records are if records are digitized, if we come up with a plan to digitize some of the records and can make enough space, that handles that side of the equation. Is that right?
Handle a large portion, you still are going to have a space issue with where do you put all of everything else that we need? I mean, there's a lot of voting equipment and printers and supplies. There's a lot of things.
I don't think we're gonna move you out there and expect that you have to work on top of a pile of boxes of equipment that's stored in there. I think it's gonna be our obligation to provide you with adequate space. So I think in that whole project, we would have to find a place to store all those things you're talking about.
Well,
I don't
and I
expect-
would appreciate the fact if you can come back with a plan and I can come back with a plan to see if it's possible on each end. I just want a little mutual respect and work together, not to be blindsided at a public meeting. Give respect and you get it back. And this has just been a horrible, I just can't believe that this even came up without any type of discussion. Absolute blindside.
I would disagree with that. I think what we're doing is open and transparent and healthy.
Then disagree.
I guess I'll just go behind closed doors next time, figure it all out.
I'm not asking anybody to go behind closed doors. I'm saying
Well, if it's not an open
reach
meeting,
out and
where's it
say,
gonna
hey,
be?
what do you think about this? Or we want to add this to the agenda. Some kind of notice.
All right, well, we disagree on some of the logistics of how we got here. How do we move forward with the concerns or the pieces that people want to see done? Doug will prepare the analysis of square footage in both places and what's available. Brenda's gonna find out on a cost to digitize some of the records. What do we want to do as far as timing of this? Is there anything before the next board meeting that needs to happen, wants to happen?
Well, Brenda's not gonna be here at the next board meeting, so I think the first meeting in May should be a pretty good deadline. Doug, do you think you can get that done by the first meeting in May?
Chair, I have a countywide election May 2nd.
That isn't gonna be anything that you need to,
I thought I needed to come back with a plan.
I think we're just gonna get the square footage thing and Brenda's opinion on the quote on digitizing records.
I already have a quote that was done by Graphic Sciences on her records, but that was with all of them, right? When you and Christy were working together on that
Yes,
project?
it was-
So it would be
Well, I
less-
would have to look at it, but they came back with two different quotes. One quote included entire court files,
Yeah, I don't.
and I
know.
think that's a huge waste.
What's the other quote?
It would be going through and pulling the orders.
And we don't
Only
have,
what does have a permanent retention period.
and we don't have a quote on that.
No, I thought that we had both, but
I don't know what I have. I would have to look at it. I just know that when Christy gave it to me, it had your stuff on it as well.
Brenda, do you have an estimate or do you remember what those quotes
I
were?
don't, it was several pages long.
We're talking hundreds of thousands or?
hundreds, 400, like around 400,000.
I don't think it was that much.
Well, that's a far cry from the couple million it was before.
So by the first meeting in May, we could have that information, you think? Is everyone agreeable to that then? Is there anything else that we want to try and accomplish before then? As far as looking at the space, everyone going to be on their own or do whatever they need before we meet again to analyze that? Anything else with it?
That was it.
That ends new business, old business. We don't have anything. Public comments. Hearing no public comments.
My public comment is it's good to see former Commissioner Miller. I think he's awake. Oh, yeah, barely.
There he is.
Yeah. Good to see he's here.
Yeah,
Other than that, I'd move
Two
to
former
adjourn.
commissioners. We have another one.
it's been moved and supported to adjourn. All those in favor?
Oh,
say
sorry,
aye.
Kathy. Yeah, geez. You were hiding behind Miller's beard.
Not as good to see you.
Sorry, Kathy. Good to see you too. I was just so excited to see his beard. Did you have a public comment? Phil?
Well, I did have a public comment.
Sorry.
I don't normally make public comments,
Let's hear it.
but I feel compelled because Ms. Bresnahan accused all of us of holding some kind of secret meeting. I have never, ever held a secret meeting. So if you have evidence that I've held a secret meeting, I'd like to see it. And I think you should be obligated to provide it if you're going to accuse me of doing something you feel is unethical.
No. Public comment. Pardon me? Public comment, same as yours. Any other public comments?
I would move to adjourn.
Been moved and supported to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Hey,
Meeting adjourned.